Welcome to Marriage Unmasked podcast. Today we are talking about when your in-laws disrespect you and your spouse stays silent. And this happens a lot. We work with couples who are dealing with a lot of in-law pain, and we're gonna be talking about this in future podcasts. But for instance, like maybe your mother-in-law is criticizing you, right? Or your father-in-law jokes, but it's really a very cutting remark. And the worst part is that your spouse just stays silent. They don't even say anything. And we're not here to villainize your in-laws. We're not here to villainize your spouse. We really want to unpack why this hurts so much, what's underneath, and help you to heal together as a couple.
And this is something that we have experienced a lot in our relationship. There's been a lot of hurt between, especially my family and Kara. There was a particular time when they had to set up some boundaries because of some hurt that had happened in the past, and they were making a phone call to us to apologize in order to repair things and have us be on the same page again. And what ended up happening in this phone call is that one of my siblings started to actually open up the wound again, and started to bring up some other past hurts and some issues, and to start attacking her and saying, well, we don't like how this and this and this is what you're doing. And rather than what needed to happen was me to step in and really take a firm stance and to shut that down and regroup and let's talk about this. I didn't really take the lead on that at all. And I ended up shutting down in the surprise of this situation. And Kara felt hurt and invalidated and undefended because I wasn't saying anything. She felt the need to defend herself against all of these fresh accusations that were coming her way. And I have a lot of regret for it now because that was just terrible. I didn't defend my wife when she absolutely needed it. And we had a history of that happening many times with my parents and my family. And so that just reopened that wound all over again. And because I was not defending her again.
Yeah, there was 4 people on the phone on their end, and then it was Adam and I with speakerphone. And so what was happening was all 4 of them were taking, shots at me. And then I'm trying to answer them, and I'm also bawling. Like I am just sobbing, crying, because it just keeps coming. And this is the last thing that Adam and I expected. We had done a lot of healing work to try to open ourselves back up to these relationships.
Yeah.
And
this was supposed to be an apology. I mean, they were supposed to be coming in to apologize and to take some ownership and to repair things. And that was the last thing that was happening.
Yeah. And I remember looking over at Adam during the call, giving him the look, are you going to say something? Why are you just sitting there? This is your family.
Yeah.
Why am I the only one talking on this call? This isn't even my family.
Yeah.
And so it was very painful.
Yeah. And it's a terrible place to be because, a man really does need to defend his wife and really have her as the number one relationship. And what was happening for me was I was unhealed really in this relationship with my parents and still trying to people please my parents and trying to play both sides and then ending up shut down. All of that unhealed or unresolved pain inside myself and this unresolved relationship really with my family was then coming out in an unhealthy way. And I wasn't showing up as Kara's needed me to show up as her husband in that moment.
And this doesn't just happen for a wife, to feel this way. Yeah. This can also happen for a husband where his mother-in-law or his father-in-law, right, are disrespecting him, and his wife, may not be, she's silent on it. So it can go either way. Yeah. That's just how our story has gone. Mm-hmm. But whichever way it's going, it's not just disrespect. It's really this abandonment. Where you feel unprotected. It's like a double wound, right? You feel the disrespect from them from the one side, and then from your spouse, you're also feeling abandoned, unprotected, and it's just really, really painful. You might ask, why am I the only one bothered by this? And that's kind of, I think, what I was thinking on this call was I don't understand. This is my husband. Why do I feel alone in this? And am I not worth defending? Yeah. Right. That's really kind of what one of those deeper thoughts that can be there. feeling alone in the pain is often worse than the pain itself. And so that's the part that really is the zinger.
Yeah, and my heart, my heart sinks even just talking about this again, because I can put myself in your shoes now, and I can understand that that was super painful and really hard for you to go through. And so why was I shutting down? Why does a spouse become silent in this situation? And it's not necessarily a malicious thing. Like, it wasn't in my case. I wasn't trying to maliciously just throw her to the wolves and let her experience all this pain. There was some unhealed stuff in myself. I really froze up. It was like a freeze response. And then I was like trying to avoid the conflict. You know, that's something that often comes up for spouses, is you're trying to avoid a conflict instead of actually have a necessary conflict in order to bring about true repair. Instead, you're trying to avoid it. You're trying to people please. You're trying to play both sides. You're trying to be the peacekeeper in your mind. But that isn't actually keeping the peace either. It's actually just stepping out of your role as really the representative between your family and your parents, really, in that situation. And also, one thing that can play into this is, like, you have this deep loyalty with your parents. In some ways, some unresolved relationship issues with your parents. Instead of defending my wife as a man, I was sinking back into like the little boy energy of my parents, and
more like this fear of
yeah, it was a
disappointing the parents.
Fear of disappointing my parents, and yeah,
not appearing the good boy, not appearing, yeah.
All of that was in play. All of that was in play, and I think that can happen quite often in these situations. But it doesn't really matter how this happens. When you freeze up and when you avoid, it still feels like a betrayal for Kara. Like, she still felt really betrayed by me. It doesn't really matter why I was showing up that way. So your spouse may not be choosing their family over you in the relationship in that moment. That might not be a conscious thing they're trying to do. But when they are trying to keep the peace instead of defend you, it still ends up with the same result. It still ends up in pain and disconnection in your marriage.
So, how to start healing? The first step is really, naming the hurt, right? That's always the first step, is identifying like what emotion you're feeling, and allowing yourself to dig into that. It's not going to be something you want to do necessarily, right? Your body doesn't want to feel pain, and this is probably a painful emotion. So it's brave work, but it is needed to go in and allow yourself to name it. Like, it's not just like, your mom is rude, right? I'm sure that's what wants to come out of your mouth if your mother-in-law has said something hurtful, but it's more like, I felt exposed, alone, like I didn't matter.
It's so powerful when you name the actual emotion instead of like blame or attack.
And then the second one is to share your need without blame. So an example is like, I don't expect you to go to war for me, right? Like, and in that moment, I didn't want him to like amp it up and like start this whole big, fight where now we're not speaking for years, and that's not what I wanted either, right? So you can share your need, like, I don't expect you to go to war, but I need you to see what's happening and support me.
Yeah.
And I'm just giving an example. You don't need to say these exact words. Whatever your need is, express that without blame.
Yeah. And then the third one is to really invite, not demand, a new response from your spouse. And you say, can we talk about how you might do this differently next time? Can we talk about how you might respond differently if this situation comes up again? And that invites them then to come up with a solution in advance so that this doesn't happen again, and that you can move on in a healthier way if this does crop up again. For the silent spouse, we encourage some reflection. What makes it hard for you to defend your spouse? What makes it hard for you to have a real conversation with your parents about this, to speak up? Is it fear? Is it coming from a place of like anxiety or fear inside of yourself? Like fear of what you look like, fear of what's going to happen, fear of losing the relationship? Is this just guilt or shame that's showing up? Or is this just a habit that you've developed in how you deal with your parents? And so that reflection is powerful, because once you understand a little bit more of where it's coming from, then you can dig in there and really start to work on it and heal these things. And then another big question is, how can you still honor your parents while also loving your spouse at the same time? And that is going to look different for everybody. To both honor your parents and yet also to love your spouse in a way that they need to be loved in that kind of situation.
So, I mean, these steps they probably sound nice, right? Like step 1, step 2, step 3. It sounds like this pretty little package, like, okay, nice. But there is so much more involved with this. I want you to know that, first of all, it's not going to look so pretty, so linear, like, okay, I'll just follow step 1, step 2, step 3. These are more of a guideline, right? Like, remember, the number one thing to do is to feel those emotion out, and that might take you days, that might take you weeks.
Yeah.
I remember it when we were walking through this. I mean, I was working on feeling these emotions and forgiving for weeks and weeks and months, and I still sometimes the pain comes back up. Something triggers that, and I have to walk through forgiveness and walk through feeling those emotions out again. So it's not like a one and done thing necessarily. It's like, okay, well, I named that emotion and I shared my need, and then we talked about how he's going to respond or she's going to respond differently next time. And so why do I still feel hurt? You might need to talk over and over again about what your need is, right? You may need to talk over and over again about what's a different response. And for us, we didn't necessarily know a lot of this. We didn't know language around emotions and asking for needs and all that. That's why we are so excited to be able to share it with you now, because we've learned it. But so it was extra painful for us. This caused a lot of conflict between us.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of pain in our marriage. And those things needed to be felt too, right? Like, I needed to feel the pain from his family, but I also needed to feel the pain from him. And I had to allow myself to feel that out, walk through forgiveness with both of them over and over again. It's not even just, the pain from that moment. There's an impact. For me, a lot of the pain with my in-laws has come from sadness, grieving a relationship with my in-laws that I desired and I have tried to work towards all these years, not perfectly, but that's been my desire. And I've had to really grieve. That's not there. That hasn't happened. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. And that's been really hard. And it's okay. Whatever is coming up for you, it's okay to feel that out, right? Talk to God about it. Share that with him and invite him into your pain and your healing. He wants to be part of that with you, and he is a completely safe space. There's no judgment with God.
Yeah, and for the silent spouse or the spouse that's in the same situation I was in, that may take some time too, because you really have to dig deep and understand, why are you showing up this way? Why are these responses coming? What is unhealed inside of me that's causing me not to take up my wife's side in this and really defend her? What's unhealed yet in my relationship with my parents, maybe, or what's unhealed yet in the way that I'm looking at my spouse and the way I'm telling myself this narrative of what's going on, and to really do a lot of reflection. That takes time to really understand and get to the bottom of, and then it takes a lot of bravery to go after repair again and to go after these things and to understand there's going to be some conflict here, and I have to be comfortable with that conflict, not avoid talking and having these hard conversations, and not avoid those emotions that I have to process and that I also have to help my wife through too.
Mm-hmm. And a part of this conversation, which we are going to talk a lot more about this in a future podcast episode, is setting boundaries, right? Because we're not asking you to continually put yourself in a situation that is going to continue to bring pain over and over again, or it just is not wise to continue on in the same way that you have been going. And it's not necessarily because of something you're doing, but maybe it's something on the other side. I mean, it's usually partially both, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, so when you remember, you are a team. You and your spouse are a team, and you prioritize your spouse, just like it talks about in Genesis 2. A man will leave his father and mother. and then the two will become one flesh.
That is such an important passage in this whole topic, is
Yeah.
to go back to that again and again, and to remember that you have left that relationship with your parents. It's still an important relationship, it's still a good relationship, but it is no longer the primary and the most important relationship. The most important relationship is between you and your wife, and that needs to be treasured and held up at all costs.
Because when you think about it that way, you are one. If one part of the one is feeling abandoned by the other, that is deeply painful. And we want to help you come back to one, right? Come back to that oneness, come back to that unity, that togetherness. And so it's helpful to agree on some boundaries. Maybe that includes limiting your time with the in-laws, right? Or changing the setting. Maybe things are really painful when they come to your space. And so you decide, okay, we're not going to meet up in our home anymore. It's going to be at a neutral location or their home or whatever. And that's just an example. But right now, actually, this month in Restored, I'm doing a challenge on how to set healthy boundaries. And so that's something, if you haven't joined Restored yet, you're going to love that challenge. And you can go back and do past challenges as well. So those are always available. You can even do it over and over again. Like, let's say you go through the challenge, but then in a couple months you have a really painful experience with the in-laws or with your own spouse, and you need to go back into that challenge again and set healthy boundaries. This is a great one that you can do over and over again. So yeah, boundaries, they don't mean that you're dishonoring somebody, right? This is not
or even punishing or
right.
anything like that. It is a healthy way to protect the relationship and to hold out hope for a deeper relationship.
Yeah, God has brought you together. He has joined you together, and you want to protect that unity. You want to protect that oneness. And so the boundaries they can be very helpful.
And healing really begins when your spouse sees disrespect not as just a problem out there, but it's our problem. We are a team. We are together. We are partners in this. And the disrespect that's happening is really happening to both of us. And it is our problem, not just one spouse's problem. And it's not just, well, she's being sensitive to them or whatever. It is our problem. And to be united in that is extremely important to walk through these kind of painful situations. My Refined group is also an amazing place for guys to learn more about this and to step into a better position of leadership in their relationship with their in-laws too. Because that is super important. Because a lot of times I've found, and I had this too, is that men often have kind of strange attachments yet with their parents that need to be worked on, and there's some healing there that needs to happen, whether it's with your mother or with your father, and that can affect the relationship dynamic with your wife, and especially in a situation like this. So to talk through those things with other guys, to heal from some of those childhood things, is very powerful to do with other men who are also walking that same journey with you and can provide you with some very key insight into what's going on and how to move forward.
We know this is a really sensitive topic. There's probably a lot of unhealed pain there if you've experienced this yourself. And so we just encourage you to, be very gentle with yourself as you start the healing process. We hope that you felt really heard in this, even though we didn't get to hear your actual story. Feel free to send us a message anytime and share with us. But we hope that you did feel heard in this, and that this was helpful in giving you next steps to move forward and move back into connection as a couple. And if this was helpful, we'd love for you to rate and review the podcast. We'd love for you to share it on social media and tag us. That's all so helpful for us in getting the word out and helping couples who are in pain to heal and grow back together, which we know there's still hope for that. We know God can do incredible things, even in deeply painful relationships. So we would love your help in spreading the word. We will see you next week for another episode of the Marriage Unmasked.